think we're going to start this session with something that's probably a little bit different for you guys. I know that, you come here and you expect to hear like a lot of technology discussions. And before we get into that, I want to really dive a little bit deeper into, why are we doing what we're doing? You're going to see what we're doing, but, what's driving that? And I'm a marketing person, right? So I'm in the portfolio and product marketing group. And, one of the main things that we focus on is customer research. I want to share with you guys, some of the insights and the trends that we're seeing so that, you can understand why it is that we're doing what we're doing. But I want to start with something that kind of inspired a new set of research that we just did. And it was actually in this forum. Stephen will be, pretty familiar with this. It was back in February on one of the on-premise IT roundtable podcasts. There was a panel who had a really interesting discussion. And, they talked about, is the traditional cloud dead? Is the hyper cloud more important than the cloud? And, Stephen defined the hyper cloud as a layer above the cloud that abstracts all the resources and allows you to build on them in a uniform way. So I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Let's see, let's do some new research and ask customers what they think about this. Well, so we did, and 83% of them said, yes, we agree with this panel. The hyper cloud will be part of our cloud evolution strategy in the next 3 years. So we said, okay, all right, that's really interesting. And, Enrico Signoretti, analyst from GigaOM, was in this panel too. And he said something that I really loved. And he said, what's happening is a revolution here. And we're seeing this and we're like, yeah, actually, this really is a revolution. We've been looking at this for a long time. We do surveys of our customers, we poll them, we do interviews, we do, a lot of one-on-one conversations, we get customer stories, we publish some of those. But anyway, we see this trend. We see that hybrid and multi-cloud, it just keeps growing. A research study that we did at the end of last year, so about like 6 months ago, we asked our customers, how do you plan to operate your architecture? 77% said that they plan to operate as a hybrid cloud for the foreseeable future. So this made sense to us. And, in this same survey, we asked them why, what's driving this? And they said, well, from a business perspective, it's the ability to innovate faster, hands down. And then also just from an operational perspective, it's about flexibility. It's about like being able to pivot quickly as your business needs change and, having the flexibility and the scale to be able to do that. So that's great. But then there were some other things, getting back to the panel discussion that sort of piqued our interest. And we said, well, let's go out and do, a study and ask more questions about things that, we're not really quite sure and that this panel raised and sort of, made some assumptions. But we said, let's put some data to it because we wanted to find out, are the experts right in some of these assumptions or, could they possibly be wrong? So let's ask. And one of the things that we found in this discussion, there was some debate. Well, our customers really multi-cloud. I think a lot of them are really just starting out and they're just adopting, single clouds right now. Are they really multi-cloud? So we said, well, let's ask. So we went out, in this most recent survey that we did, which actually is going to be published any day now. And we worked with Gartner, the Pair Insights team, to do this. And what we found out was 93% of them said, yeah, we're using multiple public clouds. And we asked them, so help describe, help us understand how you're using hybrid. Are you on-prem with a single public cloud? And only 7% of them said, yeah. But 93% said, yep, we're multiple public clouds. And I think this is pretty understandable, right? Because this then gives them the ability to leverage a lot of different resources and the capabilities from different providers.
I have a question about the audience that was surveyed for this.
Yeah.
What types of companies and where were they located? What size? I'm just curious what the demographic information is for the people surveyed.
Yep. So this was medium and large. It was cut across the globe. The majority of them, like 70% of them, were in the US. We had then about another 20% in EMEA, and then 10% APAC. And it cut across different verticals.
Okay.
So, but something interesting here, and I know I'm sort of running out of time, so I have to get through this fast, but there is something interesting. So hold that thought for a second about the makeup of that. We also, found out from them, what kind of challenges are you facing with this? So, multi-cloud brings a lot of advantages to customers, but it introduces a lot of complexity, right? So we said, well, what are some of the issues? Interoperability, we heard, compatibility, lack of standardization creates a lot of operational headaches. So complexity was the key thing. There's different management tools. There are different data services, different workflows. Inconsistent storage formats was a big one, which may require application refactoring. And we heard from customers, look, this just increases the operational chaos. And because of that, it also increases the costs. And not having visibility across all of these disparate environments, creates additional costs too, because you may have some resources that you don't even know that you have, or they're not being utilized to the best way that they could be. It also introduces security risks. So now you have multiple attack vectors and more surface areas. You have, no holistic visibility, which then just, creates an inconsistent approach to security, to data governance. And then this, they told us, look, this is leaving us vulnerable. And then the last bit here is just, lock-in. When you have different silos of data and infrastructure, that's stuck in separate locations, this makes it much more difficult to move data. So, portability problems, and data mobility then is limited. So, one of the things too, though, in the panel discussion, there was a lot of debate about, well, are customers even really moving data? What about data gravity? So we said, that's interesting too. Let's find out. Let's ask customers. And what we heard was, yeah, actually 90% said to us that, yeah, we're moving data and apps between clouds. And, this shows you the frequency. So most of them are, monthly, quarterly. But when it comes down to understanding, well, who are these customers? The question that you raised, we saw actually that manufacturing, finance, insurance, and banking, they're moving data more than some of the other verticals. And, it was kind of funny because this made sense to us. Because, if we look for examples within our own customer base, we see this. Aston Martin, their cognizant Formula One racing team said, we've got a really cool use case for moving data. We've got, compute instances on the track, and we're collecting a lot of data about the cars during races. We're sending that back to the factory. We're analyzing that data. We're then making decisions and telling drivers to do different things, so that they can compete better. So, in a case like this, when, seconds count, they're moving this data to make those decisions and to impact their ability to compete. And, we see this in other industries too. This was also Dow Jones. They're saying that, hey, we move data everywhere, and this is a game changer for us. It gives us flexibility, that we didn't have before. So it was interesting to see, people, they are moving data. Our customers, IT pros that aren't in our customer base, that are in this survey base, they're moving data. And one of the things that I actually thought was really interesting, and when we asked about the complexity and the challenges that customers had, a few times I heard this, that it's just, there's so much unknown. We're afraid of the unknown, and that's really limiting us from, taking risks and getting the benefits from those risks. So, we think about this and we think, yeah, you don't want the unknown in your IT environment, right? That's probably the last thing that you want. So I think, what we're hearing from customers is, hey, if you guys can give us a way to take that risk out, to make our experience more predictable, more compatible across these environments, more uniform. Going back to that idea of the hyper cloud, right? It's like about the uniform aspects that enable you to do things, in a more consistent way, more predictable. So I think that's really, what we're thinking about, and how do we do that and change, the way we approach our services. So I think for us, it boils down to really three key things that you're going to be hearing, throughout the day. Number one, it's about simplicity. How do we make things more simple for our customers? Customers, obviously, security, I think that's no surprise to anybody. Customers want things that are secure. They want to improve their security postures. And then the last thing here is flexibility. So again, a key driver for the hyper cloud, it's really about being able to have flexibility, to pivot quickly, and to move at the speed that your business needs to move at.